During the recess, I was just made aware of one of the, somebody had some pretty interesting stuff to comment on one of the items we passed in consent deal, so I'd like to, with the board's permission, just reopen public comment quickly on item G6. If you want to, I got worthy to share that information.
My name is David Cole, and I was going through the notes, the board notes that are right there in the corner, and I noticed that you adopted a resolution or a proclamation for the 150 years of Lassen. And interestingly enough, I'm going to be in Peter Lassen's birth town in Denmark, Farum, Denmark, on April 20th. And I wondered whether I could get a copy of this to take, and if I can make an arrangement, maybe present it to their city council. I'm actually going there to clean Peter Lassen's monument, because they have in that town a little triangular piece of grass next to a pharmacy from the 1700s, which is still operating, an exact duplicate, or nearly exact duplicate. The words are in Danish that are on it, and it doesn't say he was killed by Indians. But other than that, they've been politically correct long before the United States was. And so, and it's about half size, roughly. So I'm going to go clean it and meet with a stonemason if it needs repair, because they don't give it as much due. They know that it's there, but they don't really know who he is. So I was just wondering if I could get a copy of this.
Yeah, we'd be more than happy to get them fixed up with a nice presentation copy, because we have one here that the board signed, so we'll be made up and we can haul that along. It's interesting to note, and I appreciate you're going to do that, because I think that's exciting. Dave Foster, when he was the mayor back in around 1990-91, made a visit over there for that express purpose. And you might talk to Dave. He still lives up on North Pine.
I was with him yesterday.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, but he actually took over stuff and brought some stuff back. Because in 1990 we had the Danish Boy Scout troop, the Peter Lassen Boy Scout troop from Farum, Denmark, visited this area. Actually, they visited all of Northern California on a, tracing the route of Peter Lassen coming to America, and eventually it was the 150th anniversary of his migration to California, which at that time was 1990, so it was 1840 when he first arrived in California. And but it's the monument we have out here, the one that has that inscription on it, which was actually installed around 1917, and it was funded by a penny drive from the school kids of Northern California, all over Northern California. They collected their pennies. This was during World War I. And the funds they raised not only paid for this marker to be installed, but also the one over in Farum, Denmark. That's why
Is that where the funds?
Yeah, so it was kind of a joint type of a project. So, but the kids were here from Denmark to check out the spot, and they visited a few other places in Northern California that Peter Lassen was known to inhabit. And so, yeah, that's great. Maybe after he gets back, he can make a presentation and share some pictures.
Yeah.
It's on my bucket list one of these days, and I hope to be able to make a trip to Denmark and go visit that same spot.
Yeah, that would be great. Okay.
Well, thanks, yeah, that's pretty interesting. Thanks for sharing that. Okay. Okay, we're gonna move on to item H7, is the grand jury report, response to the 2012-2013 report.
Yeah, that's the binder problem. We've already discussed that.
Anyway, prepared response for the,
Not that they don't put it together properly.
It's
I
not
just want
there.
to clarify that. It's put
Yeah.
together perfectly, it's just to get
It's a
to that
fishing
information.
expedition.
Yeah.
I prepared a response for the board to submit to the grand jury, and essentially the items that were identified in the grand jury report pertain to the auditor's office. The auditor's office has already responded to the grand jury report, and this basically concurs with the auditor's responses to that.
Any questions of board members?
So the grand jury asked the question, this is auditor's response, is the grand jury gonna report back to auditor, this is a good answer, everything's good, or how's the process work?
The grand jury issues a report with certain findings and asks for responses from whoever they wish to. When they get those responses, I believe they include them in the next year's report. Is that correct? Yeah. So they'll include those responses in the following year's report. And if there are additional findings or questions, they'll take that up at that time.
And in the past, Mr. Chairman, you know, a lot of the comments are even directed towards the board and requesting the board to respond. And normally when the report comes out, there's a time period, I don't know how many days you're supposed to have a response. But all the departmental responses, such as like this one from the auditor's office, along with all the other departments, you know, obviously the response goes to the grand jury, but the board also receives those responses. We put them together and under cover from a letter from the board, acknowledge us having received the report, received the questions, and received the response, and it gives us an opportunity to critique that response as well and submit that to the grand jury. And my question is, didn't we have, I mean, that didn't happen last fall, like, that's usually in the fall, like September, October is when the board hears that. So is this the only department that received comments back, or did other departments not get comments?
This was the only one that I'm aware of that required the board, or asked the board to respond to.
As well?
Yes.
Okay. That's why I just wanted to check, and I guess the question is, I mean, Karen's response is dated October 28th. This is like March.
Right.
This is something that should have come to the board like last October or November.
Right. And I believe each of you got a copy of the grand jury
Yeah.
report.
Right. Karen, how many special districts do we have that you have to audit?
Thank you for asking that.
Not to put you on the spot or anything.
Actually, the auditor's office does not audit special districts,
Okay.
but we do collect the audit reports
Okay.
for all special districts. And that's not only the special districts that have their funds in the treasury, but it's all districts within the county. There's quite a few that, different districts that do not have funds in the county, but we do collect their audit reports.
So Karen, do we disperse most of the funds for these districts, or the majority, or
The
no?
ones that receive property tax revenue,
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
We have approximately 30 special districts that have their funds in the county treasury.
I got it.
Of those, and there's about 8 that have not done their annual audit. So, and some of them are kind of special circumstance. Everybody should have an audit done. There's no
Yes.
debating that.
Yes.
The ones that have not include some of the fire districts that are really small and are struggling, not necessarily with finances, but with just getting active
Reporting.
board members.
Right.
So Doyle is one, Madeline is another, Little Valley, Northwest Lassen. So that's that. I am working on putting procedures in place to do annual audit reviews. I'm talking to a couple different CPA firms that may be interested in putting a process like that together. So, and we'll see how that develops. So, but I do want to clarify, the auditor's office does not do the audits
Itself.
itself, yeah.
Got it.
And as far as audits for state mandated programs, other than special districts, all of those audits are complete. So we're not deficient on any audits in the county.
So what's the procedure if some of these guys don't get their audits reported?
Well, I report them to the state controller's office,
Okay,
so, and that's, that's part of it as well.
okay.
I have just one question for Karen, while she's at the podium. The county's audit, our main audit, which covers a number, as you pointed out in your letter of response to the grand jury last October, for the last fiscal year, which ended June 30th, was completed prior to December 31st, which is something the board was really anxious in over previous years. We've had those reports and audit presentations made well after the first of the year. And you actually provided the board members with a copy. I know I got mine back in about the middle part of December.
Correct.
But generally, after the audit is distributed for that purpose, at some point, usually right after the first of the year, we get the auditing firm coming to just kind of do a review and be available to answer questions and so forth that we may have. And is that good?
That hasn't happened. The
Is there
reason-
a reason why it hasn't happened?
Yes, there is. Mainly because of the transition on the board itself with new board members, new CAOs. We had the presentation to be scheduled for tomorrow, but because of the change in the board meeting, that didn't happen. We made another shot for April 22nd, but the board's going to be on the road that meeting. So at this point, and we're trying to coordinate it with the presentation of the Solid Waste Authority's audit. So anyway, those were the roadblocks and why it hasn't been presented.
Well, that's March and April, but why didn't we do it in January or February? We
Because
could
of
have been-
transition with the CAO and the board.
Well, it shouldn't make any difference whether we're transitioning with the CAO and the board at all. I mean, the board hasn't changed since September. And the CAO, I mean, we had an interim and I mean, I don't think whether it's an interim or an acting or a permanent, this should be a roadblock.
Okay.
So, but anyway, I think it's important. We obviously, the good news is really nothing in the audit of significant concern. The problem is if you wait, the longer you wait after the close of a fiscal year to review the audit, if you have a problem, your ability to institute corrective action, to fix something that you could have fixed in last fall or in January, if you try to fix it in May, now you got 2 months to make something happen that should have happened over 10 months or a year, so.
Right. And you're correct, but as you stated, there was nothing disclosed in that audit that
It
required
was probably one of the best.
corrective action.
One of the best audits we probably have had in over the years, so. But still though, I think it's important that we make that available and have the opportunity to discuss it, so.
Oh, it's also.
So it's going to be sometime in May now? I think?
I haven't scheduled it.
Okay.
It's also posted on the county website under the auditor's homepage if anyone's interested.
Thanks, Karen. I have a question for you.
Sure.
Hi. Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to make, I know when I say elaborate, I mean, you have it here, but I just wanted to hear your, in-person take on where you said you have it listed in, down below near page 1, Lassen County Auditor's Office, and it's on page 2 of the letter that I'm going to sign, where it starts where I agree with this finding in part, and then you go on to talk about the internal auditor position. And it says would not eliminate the need for external audits and thereby save money, but the establishment of an internal auditor could, of an auditor position, could reduce the potential for fraud within Lassen County departments and special districts within the county. So I just kind of wondered a bit more take on it.
Well, first, like I said, it would not eliminate or save money by reducing the cost of audits, because the audits of special districts would still be required by outside auditors, not the county auditor. An internal auditor position, right now in the auditor's office, we don't have staff available to go out and do on-site visits either for special districts or county departments. And that would be something that would be helpful.
Yeah, the reason why I wanted to ask you is because if you think it is a helpful tool, I think that maybe we need to agendize that or discuss it further to see, if we don't have that resource and if the board and, Richard, thinks it's important. that we
Perhaps
do.
consider it at
Yeah,
budget time.
exactly.
Yeah, it's something that should be a part of the budget process. I think it's one definitely worth looking at.
So I think there'd be a benefit.
Okay. Well, thank you. And, I mean, how would the board like to, if we're gonna add that position or consider adding it, should we discuss it at an agenda meeting?
We could do it a couple of ways. I would suggest we start at a budget committee meeting
Okay.
with the idea of what that position might be.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I think you have plans on doing budget committee meetings starting relatively soon,
Okay.
so.
Yeah, thank you for
Sure.
raising that point. It kind of, jumped out at me as something that maybe we should. Yeah, thank you. Okay, is there any public comment on this item before we take action? Okay, so we'll bring it back here for more discussion, looking for a motion to approve the response.
I do that, Mr. Chairman.
That was a tie, let's see.
I'll second it.
Okay.
Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Okay, thank you. All right, let's move on to H9. This is the draft request for proposal. It's an item, agenda just for discussion to do with the RFP for the Amity Airfield and East Shore parcels.
Mr. Chairman, last week the board asked me to agendize this item regarding the draft request for proposals for the purpose of discussing the specific issue of whether or not we offer the property all as one unit or break it up into multiple parcels.
Yes, we'll start off by having some board discussion, and then we'll go to the public, and we'll bring it back here, so.
Well, I guess I'm be the blame on it, so I can go ahead and start.
Don't be so hard on yourself.
On,
We didn't blame you, I thought you'd encourage you.
anyway, this property here, it doesn't cost us anything in utilities. It doesn't cost us anything in insurance. It just sits there and it doesn't cost us anything. And I think to sell this in all one fell swoop is a disservice. And I think, as I've stated earlier, that we need to retain part of the property, half the property surrounding the airfield. Whether it's the north half, the east half, the south half, the west half, whatever, you need to retain half that property, probably about 300 acres, I would say. And if you want to sell the rest in one fell swoop to get some industry to come in there and get going, well then that's fine. But if you save that and some industry comes in and gets going, that's a cash cow later on, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years down the road, where if there are budget problems or something else, well, then it can be sold. It's a very cheap insurance policy for the future members of the board, for the residents of the county, et cetera, so if they need something, they've got it. And I think if we sell it to one person, and they go and they do nothing with it, we have no recourse. And I think it's just silly on our part to sell it as one unit to one person. I mean, I think we need to break it up some, at least into 2 parcels. That's my 2 cents.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to comment?
Oh, I'd like to comment on that. I think if we split this parcel up, we're gonna get some investment speculators in there that are gonna hold on to the property, and you wanna hold on, the county wants to hold on to the property. I think we've proven the first time through the Hurlong process that that didn't work very well. And if you wanna discourage investors in this property, then split it up. That's the whole key thing right there. I believe a lot of Lassen County's future might be resting with that runway. And I'm hoping that we can get it developed. On the second point, we don't sell it to just anybody. We sell it to somebody who's gonna do something with it. And so what if we put in the RFP some performance evaluations? Why don't we do that? Why don't we try that? Instead of cutting out some of the investors, I know if I was an investor and I'd be looking at that property and I'd be saying, well, yeah, I'll put in $40 million into this infrastructure and we'll let the guy next door profit from it. I don't think I'd do it. I don't even look at it.
We know it's gonna be coming up next time, and he'll bid more money so he can keep it all himself.
He'll bid more money. So I think we went down that road once, Aaron, on that already. We tried to do that with all the buildings out in Hurlong and all the property out in Hurlong, and look what happened. Zero. We've already made that mistake. Why repeat the mistake? Bob?
You know, I'm kind of 6 to 1, half dozen the other on. I don't, you know, I respect everything that Aaron and Tom have said, and the man was here earlier this morning. So to keep it in 10 years from now, the Army's going to give you the airport, it's going to be worth all its money. Well, I don't believe it's our job to wait 10 years. I mean, I think we had the same discussion 10 years ago or more, that the Army give it to us and give us $2 million to advertise and market it and develop that. The idea was it was going to be a big money maker, and obviously it didn't happen. I don't believe we're in the real estate business, and we shouldn't be. I still believe the best thing to do is put an RFP out, so out in the highest bidder can have it.
Most qualified.
Well,
Whatever it is.
you know, the RFP will have stipulations in it.
Absolutely.
And that's what the guy's bidding on it. And I mean, I don't think we have to get the highest bidder and then bring him in and interview him and see if he's qualified. I think that'll be in the RFP. And again, if you want to know the true value of something, not what some, you know, $40,000 consultant says or some local real estate man or whoever. If you want to know the true market value of anything, I don't care if it's property, if it's a building in town, if it's a building in Hurlong, if it's a load of logs, if it's a truckload of hay, if it's a load of cattle. If you want the true market value, you put it up for public auction. And what is the high bid is the true market value. And I strongly believe this land should be put up, the RFP should be set up properly and put it up for public auction, public bid, and the highest bidder, it is his. And he can do with it what he wants. It becomes his property. And if he's got $40 million to go out there and develop it, you know, that's totally up to him. If he wants to sit off for 10 years and hope the airport comes back to the county or him, that's up to them. I totally, strongly believe in, you know, capitalism, and that's how it should be done and taken care of.
Thank you. You know, my take on it is, there's a few things. I mean, I think first and foremost, you know, we need to decide as a board how are we going to get the most value of what we have. And basically that's what we're discussing. Do we feel the most value is going to come as one parcel or, you know, 2 or 20, however we want to divide it. I mean, personally, I don't think I think the value is going to be to get the right guy, and the right guy might not come along in the first RFP, or the second, or the third. Maybe the right guy only comes along in 10 years. I mean, who knows? But I think it's going to be the most value to the right guy is one piece of land, because there is going to be a lot of money to be spent on infrastructure and, you know, getting the place to be able to do something with. And, you know, if you don't know who your partner is going to be, your neighbors, you know, you're a bit leery to spend that kind of money. So I think ultimately the county would receive the most benefit from somebody securing the whole thing, mainly for that reason. I agree with it, we should put it up, but I don't necessarily agree we take the highest bid. I mean, for instance, hypothetically, if somebody bid $10 and another guy bid $11, I mean, we don't take anything. I think.
We always have that option.
Yeah, I'm
Most qualified.
my urgency, or if you will, or my motivation, or what I'd like to see happen as soon as possible, is we put it out there. We market it as well as we can, you know, on a national level, obviously. I'm excited for that, and that's where my urgency right now begins and ends. I'm not in a big rush to, say, okay, let's hurry up and put it out and let's sell it to whoever gives us the highest bid. No, I'm excited to see what comes of it and what proposals we get. And, I mean, I think it's premature, to say, we're gonna sell it to them, because we don't know. We need to market it to people that have no idea that we even have it right now. And see, and if, there's a very good likelihood that we're not gonna get any offers that we like. I mean, because any business guy, they're gonna, it's gonna be, we need to negotiate big time so if it's successful, we enjoy long-term success. And so, do I want to get it out there as one parcel because I think that's what's going to be in the best interest of the potential developer, the county's price? Yeah. Am I in a big rush to sell it? No. I'm in a big rush to see what we get back and go from there. I think I'm not necessarily the high bid guy. I personally want to see who's out there and who could do the best deal for us, long term. And that may or may not be the highest bidder. And again, we're not forced to accept any offer, anything. Right now, I think we owe it to the taxpayer and the community to put it out there and expose it and see what we get, because until we do that, we're just sitting on it. It's doing nobody any good, including us or the taxpayers or anybody. It's just, I think we should put it out there and let's see what we get back, and then we go from there. That's my take. So, Supervisor Chapman?
And Mr. Chairman, I appreciate listening to what the other board members have to say, and I agree with parts of each of what they have to say, but I don't think I necessarily totally agree with everything one or the other says. I think there has to be something more established in the middle. First of all, I don't think the property's worth squat right now, the way it's configured. First of all, even though it surrounds the airstrip, it does not have access to the airstrip. And the only way the access to the airstrip is established is if the Army and the county broker an agreement in terms of how that co-use of the facility can be used. So any private ownership in and around that airport is totally dependent upon the county providing access to that airfield, and that needs to be recognized early on. The Army's made it very clear they're not going to deal with XYZ or ABC Corporation, whoever the people may be. They're going to deal with the county. So whether we're involved in the process or not directly, it's going to come through the county. That's the access, and that's where the marketability is. So whether it's one ownership or a dozen ownerships is immaterial, because the county is going to be in the middle of it. I hear a lot about free enterprise and capitalism, and I love it when I listen to my capitalist friends talk about how we need to embrace that and then give all the assets to one person. And basically what you've done is you've created a monopoly. Where the public interest is best served is when you have the competitiveness within the free market enterprise. It's not a slam dunk guarantee for one interest versus another. So in that respect, the idea of turning the entire asset over to one individual or group of individuals, to me, is a very anti-capitalist notion. And I think we need to understand the significance of that. We're talking about the property that is immediately adjacent to the strip itself. I'm referring to this map here as a good representation right there. But there's a lot of other property around it. Of course, the base is down here. That's not going to be developed anytime soon. So if we're going to have, a development in this area, I think it's imperative that a corridor be established at all times and preserved and maintained. That doesn't mean like the entire thing has to be opened up, but at least a corridor that allows the public in perpetuity would have access to that airport. So you could have your facility in Standish or in Madeline or whatever, and if you're dependent upon goods shipped in and out of the airstrip, that access road-wise would allow you to get to that. So maybe they may not want to locate their facilities on these properties. These adjoining landowners right here, through that access if they're blocked. But if you surround and you basically turn the airstrip to be totally surrounded by one private interest having total control, you haven't created a capitalist environment. You've created, in many respects, a communistic environment where you have that one singular solitary control. So whatever the RFP we develop, I'm going to be pretty interested in seeing